Jim Ryan, known as the CEO and president of Sony Interactive Entertainment, SIE, has just announced his retirement after almost 30 years working with the PlayStation brand. One of Ryan's main achievements at his job was leading the PS5 to sell over 40 million units, greatly outpacing its rival Xbox during the height of pandemic and supply chain shortages. The story of Jim Ryan with Sony started back in 1994, the same year the first PlayStation was released. Ryan initially worked at Sony Computer Entertainment Europe and has participated in several segments of the company since then. In 2019, Ryan became president and CEO of SIE, essentially becoming the person in charge of the PlayStation brand. Now, Jim Ryan is stepping down as the PlayStation boss and will retire from the company in March 2024. Open quotes, as you will have seen today in the news, I have announced my retirement after nearly 30 years at Sony Interactive Entertainment. I did not take this decision lightly and I absolutely love SIE and our community. But of late I've been finding it increasingly difficult to strike the right balance between having my home in the UK and my job in the United States. As mentioned in the press release, I will continue my role as president and CEO until March 2024. Effective April 1, 2024, Hiroki Totoki will be appointed interim CEO of SIE while he continues his current role at Sony Group Corporation. I feel humbled at having the opportunity to lead a company delivering products that touch millions of lives. From award-winning games to the incredibly immersive technical achievements delivered with PlayStation 5. I'm immensely proud of what we have achieved and very optimistic for the future of Sony Interactive Entertainment. From my beginning in Europe, it was clear that Sony had built something truly special. Generations later I am still amazed by the excitement and passion of the PlayStation community. It is thanks to you that we have been able to keep innovating and delivering even greater experiences. Since 1994, generations of gamers have inspired us to be better, to push the boundaries, and the results have been incredible. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, end quotes. This was his statement to the public announcing his retirement. His retirement during this time could be forced inside Sony, because of the reasons I'm gonna cover next with the live service push. A chunk of us gamers let out a collective groan when Sony not only acquired Bungie, but confirmed that this will play into the company's pivot towards the games as a service genre going forward. With their plans to release nearly a dozen live service titles in 2026 and pouring billions more into the initiative, it's clear PlayStation is all in on this move. But, while fans aren't comfortable with this decision, it appears that the other studios under the PlayStation Studios umbrella aren't huge fans of either. Bloomberg's Jason Schreier reported that, even Bungie's expertise has not yet been able to turn PlayStation Studios into a service game factory. While it shouldn't have taken a trusted insider like Schreier to raise awareness of this situation. The report has brought to light the dangers of chasing after what could effectively be fool's gold when you're already sitting on a ton of riches. Make no mistake, Bungie is as trustworthy as can get in the live service genre. Destiny and Destiny 2 are proven hits, but they're not without their fair share of controversies. Destiny 2, in particular, might be drawing plenty of praise right now, but it didn't come easy. There was a time when the community saw it as one of the worst games on the market. This ebb and flow is characteristic of every live service game, it's just that the lows are far more common in this genre, as several other companies have unfortunately found out in recent years. While Bungie might have produced hits more often than not, the company's expertise doesn't guarantee their opinion and input will result in another goldmine for Sony. It's true, GOS titles are a potentially lucrative venture, but their formula for success requires getting players to play the game consistently over extended periods, a stark contrast to the specialty of most first-party PlayStation studios, which are big, cinematic adventure games that are played solo. The games have high replay value and God of War games are still being played today. A successful live service game demands an immense workforce. For context, while PlayStation Studios boasts about 4,000 employees, a typical GOS title commands, at any given point, somewhere between 600 to 2,000 professionals ensuring regular content updates. Given this, PlayStation's aspirations for more than 10 new live service games in the near future appear to be stretching its existing resources thin. This further emphasizes the reality of how GOS titles are a risky gamble. A single home run in the world of live service games can be a colossal profit machine, eclipsing several less successful attempts. The reasoning is clear: if Sony can foster even one or two mega hits in the mold of Fortnite or Genshin Impact, the financial windfall justifies the strategy. Yet, one can't help but wonder, is the potential reward worth the inherent risk and potential deviation from Sony's esteemed gaming legacy? Make no mistake, Sony isn't taking away from its single-player titles. We're expecting to see just as many to come out in the next few years, headlined by the likes of the next mainline Horizon entry and Marvel's Wolverine, as well as what else Naughty Dog and Insomniac Games are working on at the moment. On top of the still-to-be-confirmed project by Bluepoint Games, Santa Monica Studio, Bend, among others. But, as video game development costs balloon and timelines grow longer, you can't help but wonder if Sony is better off investing in what it knows best. What I want is the single-player experiences. Regardless of what pushed Sony to take this leap of faith, the man who steered it towards this destination won't see it come to fruition, for better or for worse. Of course, it remains to be seen if Sony's commitment to GOS will persist or if the company will recalibrate its direction under new leadership. Ultimately, while the allure of the recurring revenue from live service games is difficult if not impossible to resist, Sony's venture into this domain should be marked with caution. The company's strength lies in its rich tapestry of storytelling, and as it tiptoes into the GOS sphere, it should do so without losing its essence. After all, innovation and nostalgia often dance a delicate waltz. Sony's challenge will be to ensure neither steps on the other's toes. Ryan ultimately leaves PlayStation in a strong position. It's the console market leader and growing its share with each passing month. Its global reach is expanding, and its games are continuing to win awards and break sales records. Whoever takes charge from here will be inheriting a company in an enviable position. But there is change on the horizon. And Sony's senior leadership team will want to have that in mind when it comes to deciding who and what comes next. Speaking of the live service push from Sony, Naughty Dog is reportedly putting The Last of Us multiplayer project on ice. According to a new Kotaku story, Naughty Dog's ongoing multiplayer game is currently on ice amid layoffs at the company. Based on the factions mode from the first The Last of Us game, the live service spin-off has been a troubled project from the start. In May, Naughty Dog announced it was delaying The Last of Us multiplayer alongside a teaser for a brand new single-player experience. The studio has yet to make any official announcement about the project. However, news of its downsizing might mean that a multiplayer game from Naughty Dog is even further off the timeline. The report goes on to state that Naughty Dog may be laying off at least 25 of its contract developers, mostly from the quality assurance testing department. It further states that the contracts won't officially expire until the end of October and that the laid-off members wouldn't be offered any severance. As of now, The Last of Us maker's full-time employees are reportedly unaffected, though it remains to be seen how far its reported layoffs will impact the 400-plus staff. While the layoffs span a variety of departments, most of the people losing work are coming from the QA team. Sources told Kotaku that management has pressured employees to keep news of the cuts quiet. The layoffs are the latest turn in an eventful year for the studio. While its series The Last of Us spawned a hit HBO TV series, the studio has also seen co-president Evan Wells announce his retirement as development on the multiplayer spin-off of The Last of Us ran into problems. Kotaku reports that project hasn't yet been cancelled, but is effectively shelved for now. When Naughty Dog announced its difficulties with the multiplayer game, it also confirmed it had begun work on a new single-player title. Just one day after it was reported that Naughty Dog was letting go of around 25 people comes news of a major member of the studio leaving. Principal monetization designer Anders Howard, who joined the developer back in 2022, has left after just 11 months. He worked specifically on game systems design and product leadership on The Last of Us multiplayer game that seems to be in trouble at Naughty Dog. Prior to joining Naughty Dog, Howard had worked for both Ubisoft and Epic Games. During his time at Epic Games, he was a systems designer on Fortnite where he helped form the core of Battle Pass progression strategy, delivering overwhelming value for that product to as many players as possible. A reliable leaker, famous for breaking other big stories involving the Last of Us franchise, has put the final nail in the coffin for fans looking forward to a multiplayer tie-in for the series. Viewer Anon, a well-known and reliable leaker, broke the bad news about a new Last of Us multiplayer game to Twitter user MHM. In the post, MHM was responding to the news that Anders Howard, the principal monetization designer, left the company after 11 months. Saying that the fans should accept that the multiplayer game is likely cancelled, and if it were to come out, then that would be a pleasant surprise. Viewer Anon ended all hope with his Star Trek-related response. It's dead, Jim. Even if the multiplayer game never sees the light of day, at least fans can follow all of The Last of Us Part 3 rumors while they wait for its eventual release. Also, it's always possible that Part 3 will have a multiplayer mode of its own. The Last of Us multiplayer spin-off is intended to be a live service game based on the original's Factions mode. The Last of Us has always been acclaimed for its single-player narrative and world-building, and Factions managed to blend these elements with competitive multiplayer. Players join either a clan of hunters or fireflies and try to build up their group. One's performance in each match impacts this metagame element, and every match progresses time and propels the player's clan toward success or failure. While its implementation in the original game is relatively simple, the idea is ripe for expansion, so attempts to iterate on the mode in some way make sense. The live service nature of this multiplayer spin-off may be the reason for its development issues. The original Factions mode lasted for 12 weeks. While this is almost 100 matches, a dedicated player will complete them quickly. The easiest way to make Factions work as a live service title would be to remove this time cap and let players collaborate on a clan. This presents an issue of how the metagame should unravel and how it should impact matches. Expanding this mode while keeping it fast and engaging could also present challenges with creating a compelling narrative. But live service games need new content persistently since they rely on long-term players. This consistent content rollout is expensive to pull off and would be a mistake for a product Naughty Dog isn't confident in. Naughty Dog has a storied history of delivering exceptional single-player experiences, with The Last of Us being one of the best single-player games currently available. The multiplayer adaptation was expected to be a new and exciting addition to its repertoire. It will be interesting to see what happens with The Last of Us multiplayer project moving forward. My recommendation is, just cancel this project and move on. Hopefully PlayStation Studio doesn't put themselves into a live service quicksand and continue the single-player offerings, and should repel those kind of live service requests from higher Sony management. I've discussed as much as I can, covered and provided my insights on Jim Ryan's departure and The Last of Us Factions 2 seemingly on the verge of cancellation. Let me know in the comments what you all think. My final words for this is, live service games can go away, single-player games are here to stay. Sony is dealing with what could be a major potential data security breach, as a ransomware group is trying to sell stolen data it's taken from all Sony systems, which may include PlayStation. While it's impossible to tell whether the ransomware group's claims are accurate, it's nevertheless made posts online attempting to begin negotiations for the sale of Sony's data through encrypted proxies. The group also claims that it tried to ransom the data to Sony directly, but that Sony rejected its offer. Details regarding the group behind the alleged ransomware attack are thin, understandably, but a report from Sociradar in September now seems eerily prescient. The report mentions monitoring Telegram for threat actors and dark web activities. A group named Ransom Forums was under monitoring and announced that it would be doing a project named ransomed.vc. That's the name that's being used by the group allegedly holding data from Sony. In a report from Cybersecurity Connect, details regarding the security breach from ransomed.vc on Sony were shared. A statement from the ransomware groups explains that it successfully compromised all of Sony systems, and that it is selling all the data that it stole. The statement mentions having data specifically from Sony Group Corporation and Sony Corporation, though it also states that the data is from Sony.com elsewhere. The ransomed.vc statement also mentions that it's only offering the Sony data publicly because an attempted ransom directed at Sony was rejected. Due to Sony not wanting to pay, data is for sale, reads the message. No price is mentioned for the data. Potential buyers are told to message the ransomware group via the encrypted chat software Talks. In a new report by Bleeping Computer, Sony confirmed that it suffered 2 major data breaches earlier this year, with the first taking place on May 28. Just 3 days before a zero-day vulnerability in the MOVI transfer platform was discovered. This flaw allowed KLOU ransomware users to extract Sony's code remotely, which in turn led to the personal information of 6,791 people in the US being compromised. This virtual break-in was discovered on June 2, after which Sony launched an investigation into the matter with the help of external cybersecurity experts and law enforcement. So far, Sony believes that the incident was limited to that one particular software platform. A second breach occurred late last month, with Sony reporting that up to 3.14 gigabytes of data had been stolen from its online systems. Two separate hackers claim to be responsible for this, with each one sharing a leaked dataset containing details for the SonarCube platform, certificates, Creators Cloud, incident response policies, a device emulator for generating licenses, and other information. Third-party forensics experts discovered that this breach occurred on a single Japanese server used for internal testing for Sony's entertainment, technology, and services business, which has since been taken offline while investigations continue. Sony has contacted nearly 6,800 current and former employees, advising them that their personal information was compromised in a cyber breach. As reported by Bleeping Computer, the hack recorded by the Office of the Main Attorney General was conducted by Ransomware Group TLOU and took place from May 28 until May 30. The breach accessed the personal information from a vulnerability in Sony's file transfer platform, MOVite. Sony confirmed that the exploit was fixed. Those affected by the hack are being offered credit monitoring and identity restoration services. The news comes a week after Sony announced it was investigating the claim that another ransomware had breached its systems. Back in 2011, Sony's PlayStation network was breached. This resulted in 77 million accounts being compromised. It eventually restored the service over months, with some regions, such as Japan, having some functionality offline for as long as 76 days. Sony received class action lawsuits from affected users and eventually settled for $15 million. Those were one of the dark days, and thankfully this time it's not that big and significant of an attack, and PlayStation looks like they haven't been affected by this, or else some gaming information should have leaked. Nintendo will be shutting down most of the remaining online services for the Wii U and 3DS come spring 2024. The move is yet another step in the company's efforts to sunset support for the two consoles, with its announcement arriving some half a year after the 3DS and Wii U eShops closed down in March 2023. Nintendo announced the aforementioned eShop closure back in early 2022. Since then, the company has also been gradually shutting down some other 3DS and Wii U online features. Its next move on that front will arrive in the form of a complete discontinuation of most of the remaining internet services for the two consoles. The shutdown, slated for early April 2024, will hence spell the end of online multiplayer on the 3DS and Wii U. Once the supporting server infrastructure is taken offline, the owners of the affected consoles will also lose access to related features such as data sharing, online leaderboards, and Spot Pass, Nintendo support pages reveal. The shutdown won't prevent users from downloading games and DLC that they already own, with Nintendo confirming that functionality will still be supported for the foreseeable future. The change also won't affect features like Street Pass that rely on local communications. The sole exception to this incoming discontinuation of online services is Pokémon Bank, which will remain available on the 3DS beyond April 2024. Nintendo's decision to exempt this app from the sunsetting isn't particularly surprising, not least because future-proofing players' creature collections has been touted as one of the main selling points of Pokémon Bank since the service launched in late 2013. The shutdown of online multiplayer servers for the Wii U and 3DS will be around a month shy of the 10-year anniversary of the Wii and DS getting the same treatment in May 2014, which happened shortly before Nintendo released another one of its consoles in the form of the 3DS XL. History might repeat itself this time around as well, as some recent reports indicate that the Nintendo Switch 2 is slated for a spring 2024 launch. Nintendo President Shuntaro Furukawa sat down for an interview with Decay, as translated by VGC, during which he shared some insight into his company's plans for the next few years. These plans include focusing on the Switch until at least the end of the current fiscal year in March 2024. However, Furukawa also revealed that Nintendo will continue to develop software for the Switch all the way up to the end of March 2025. Furukawa also notes that Nintendo aims to capitalize on the success of Tears of the Kingdom and the Super Mario Bros. Movie throughout the upcoming holiday season, and there are certainly plenty of exciting first-party Switch titles on the horizon. This October will see the release of Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and Princess Peach Showtime is set to launch around the end of the current fiscal year next March. After that will come Luigi's Mansion 2 HD and Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, both re-releases of titles from past console generations. Overlaps between console generations are nothing new, as Nintendo itself continued to support the 3DS handheld with new titles for a few years after the Switch launched in 2017. Thus, it's completely reasonable to assume that the Switch will continue to receive new software if Nintendo does release its next console next year, as many are predicting. In any case, Nintendo Switch owners can look forward to continued support until at least March 2025, even if the inevitable transition to new hardware begins before then. PlayStation 4 exclusive racing game Gran Turismo Sport will be shutting down on January 31, 2024. Even though it wasn't a numbered entry, Gran Turismo Sport is technically the 7th main series game in the Gran Turismo franchise. Whereas other Gran Turismo games earned gamers acclaim and are some of PlayStation's best-selling games, Gran Turismo Sport had a much more mixed reception at the time of its release. It still sold 10+ million copies, but Gran Turismo Sport's mixed reception were largely due to its emphasis on online multiplayer. While some enjoyed Gran Turismo Sport's online multiplayer modes, others weren't happy that it seemed to come at the cost of tracks and cars, with GT Sport having less content at launch than most other games in the series. Unfortunately for those that enjoy Gran Turismo Sport and its various online modes, that part of the game is shutting down on January 31, 2024 after launching in 2017. Gran Turismo Sport's online multiplayer shutdown will be preceded by the removal of all its DLC on December 1, 2023. Online modes being impacted by the shutdown will include Community, Open Lobby, and the flagship Sport mode. Community creations will also no longer be accessible after the shutdown date. Gran Turismo Sport's offline modes will still be available and users will still be able to re-download any DLC that they previously purchased. Sony shutting down Gran Turismo Sport's online features means that some of the game's trophies will become unobtainable starting January 31st. Anyone interested in getting the Gran Turismo Sport Platinum Trophy will definitely want to prioritize playing the game as soon as possible if they hope to fully complete it by the removal date. A new rumor indicates that the upcoming Xbox console exclusive State of Decay 3 could be released only in 2027. State of Decay 3 was originally announced in 2020 during the Xbox Games Showcase. Designed by the Microsoft-owned studio Undead Labs, the game was unveiled with a short cinematic trailer and didn't have much information divulged about it since then, especially concerning its gameplay and release date. Now, a rumor indicates that State of Decay 3 could be aiming for a 2027 release. The information comes from the ArtStation profile of Nora Schrammick, who currently works at Undead Labs as the Lightning lead, and pointed out this date in her work experience. Right now, the original information is unavailable, meaning Schrammick deleted it since media outlets started to report on this story. However, it's impossible to know for sure if this only means that the date was not supposed to be divulged or if the information was wrong. If the information is correct, this means that State of Decay 3 will be released 9 years after its predecessor, and 7 after the announcement. While it's impossible to say much about State of Decay 3's development due to Undead Labs' silence, the studio has been at the center of a controversy regarding a toxic environment before. The accusations came to light back in 2022, as former employees of Undead Labs complained about a toxic workplace environment in which devs became overwhelmed by deadlines and have spoken about cases of sexism. They suffered multiple layoffs, and the game could be in some development trouble similar to most of the Xbox studios. Sony has explained why the Star Wars Knight of the Old Republic remake trailer was recently made private, saying that it was because of expired licenses. However, given that the KOTOR remake announcement tweet from PlayStation was simultaneously deleted, it is unlikely to provide much solace. With the Electronic Arts exclusivity contract coming to an end this year, the KOTOR remake was poised to be one of the first Star Wars titles including Star Wars Eclipse, not overseen by the publisher in over a decade. Aspyr was best known for the original KOTOR and its sequel, before the opportunity to remake the beloved RPG. Unfortunately, it was reported last year that several directors were fired following the presentation of a vertical slice, and development was subsequently paused. Despite the lack of updates regarding the remake itself, Aspyr's owner, Embracer Group, stated earlier this year that the company would be restructured after a $2 billion deal failed to materialize. Considering these corporate and development struggles, the KOTOR remake trailer being hidden understandably made a cancellation seem imminent. Stephen TLOU, a video game reporter at Axios, took took to Twitter to state that after questioning both Disney and Sony about the delisted kotor remake trailer, Sony claimed that assets with licensed music are taken down when such licenses expire. The natural follow-up to that, which TLOU noted in the same tweet, is to question why a music license would expire for an upcoming game. There have been no further updates regarding this situation. Although the remake may not yet be dead, fans should not expect it for some time. Shortly after several directors were fired, Saber Interactive took over the project entirely from Aspyr. Given that Aspyr had only gotten so far as a vertical slice, it is unlikely that the kotor remake will see the light of day for several years, if ever. At least for now, stakeholders seem interested in keeping the project alive. The kotor remake is not the only Star Wars video game project known to be in the works, with Quantic Dream and Ubisoft developing Star Wars Eclipse and Star Wars Outlaws respectively. Eclipse is understood to be similar to previous David Cage titles, a predominantly narrative adventure with branching paths that is not expected until 2027. Outlaws is seemingly much further along and was revealed in the summer during the Ubisoft Forward presentation. Hopefully the game is not cancelled. And that's all for the video guys. Like and share the video for a greater audience. Comment your thoughts on the topics, and donations are always appreciated. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon, and until then from SMPV, it's goodbye.